Hey guys, Ricardo here, and today I'm starting a series of videos about cybersecurity basics. So I'm going to touch on several subjects such as asset inventory, which is our first video, patch management, vulnerability management, antivirus, malware detection, etc. So I hope it's helpful for someone out there, for security analysts, for security managers. I will try to keep those videos short and to the point, so it can be helpful for anyone that needs to improve their security program. Okay, so jumping into it. First, I would like to just explain what cybersecurity controls are. If you're a newcomer to IT or to cybersecurity, so you can have an idea of what I'm talking about. So cybersecurity controls are divided into three categories. First one are physical controls, such as locks, card readers, even lights can be security controls. Technical controls, such as antivirus, firewall, anti-spam, etc. This one, I would say that what most of the security professionals like and have experience with it. So it's like the basics that we see or that we should see on companies. Like every company needs to have an antivirus. I would say an EDR, like an evolution of the antivirus with enhanced capabilities. I know there are XDR and other things, but just keeping it simple, let's say EDR. And then there's the administrative controls. Those ones, I think it's a big issue for us. And I believe that given that most of the cybersecurity professionals come from a technical background, I think a lot of us don't put much effort or maybe don't like to do it. But administrative controls are totally essential. And they are the policies that we define, the procedures, standards, guidelines, security awareness training, and asset inventory, which is our topic today. Asset inventory is often overlooked. People don't know what they have in their networks. They don't have tools to scan the networks to find new devices. And that's a huge issue. Unless you have a system that blocks the connection of new devices, that like radios or NAC or something like that, it's very problematic. Anyone can go and just plug something into your network, and then who knows what that machine has or the intent of that machine, especially due to COVID, that there aren't many strict controls in several companies. So maybe you don't have a lot of people in the office, so it's easier to just plug something or to try something that you maybe shouldn't try. So it's very critical, guys. And I would honestly like to see more companies doing it, because it's totally critical for several things: for protection, for vulnerability management, patch management, inventory. For example, if you don't know what you have, you can have problems with pirate software. So it's very, very important to get it right. So as I mentioned, I believe that asset inventory is the most important cybersecurity control. And I think that it's pretty simple. You can't protect what you can see, right? You need to know what you have, and you need to know what each asset does, so you can define your cybersecurity controls and your techniques around that, right? You need to have a way to periodically scan your networks to find shadow IT, or to find something that should not be in a specific network, or something that you don't recognize, something with like a weird name or some weird patterns, right? Network scanners such as Nessus, Qualys, Rapid7, any of the good tools that we have in that field can help you to find those assets. You can run it daily, if you can, weekly at least. And it's very, very important. So it basically will scan all your networks and give you a list of host names. If it was able to retrieve that, it will give you IPs, it will give you MAC addresses. So it will give you at minimum a good amount of information about the assets that it found. Together with that, ideally you should have a CMDB, which stands for Configuration Management Database. Basically stores information about devices and softwares within your network. So you have there like server X owned by XYZ, does whatever, it's critical or not. So this is another thing that is very important, right? Scans are very important. Information is very important, of course, but the most important is what you do with that information, right? So that information needs to enrich your capabilities, your vulnerability management, your processes. And it's very important to first know the assets you have. Second, assign system owners, because those are responsible for defining controls, defining who can access that information, patching, etc. B, criticality ratings to each asset. That's very important. So you never use a single approach to every asset. That is a recipe for disaster. So you need to protect each asset accordingly to its criticality rating. For example, let's say that that asset is worth $1,000. And when I say it's worth, I'm not saying that the hardware costs $1,000. That is kind of irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. I would say that the important value is what it brings to the company, the value of the information that it processes, the value of, let's say, brand impact if that device is down or if the information that it processes leaks. So you need to take everything, all of that into consideration to get to, let's say, a criticality, and then design your controls around that, right? One of the things that the CISP exam it's very strong is that you don't protect all the assets the same way. For example, you can't protect $1,000 worth asset with a $10,000 control. Doesn't make any sense. So it has to have a cost benefit, right? If, for example, if you know that if that asset is down or it leaks or whatever, it will cost you $1,000 with everything like brand, reputation, downtime, etc. And I come and I offer a 1 million control. That's insane. And that's something that lots of IT professionals and security professionals fall to, right? You can't use like a blanket approach to everything. So you need to analyze a case by case scenario, right? So that's why important to have the system owners, have criticality ratings, and you need to understand what that asset does. For example, that asset handles confidential information or personal healthcare information or personal identifiable information, credit card, etc. You need to consider it in one way, and you need to design your controls around that, always having in mind laws, regulations, brand reputation, etc. Right? So it's not easy, but you need to have all that to tackle your risk, right? So very important, guys. Take a look at your assets, classify your assets, go after system owners, and then define how you're going to protect those assets. That is the first step to get a good cybersecurity program going. To then define your scanning techniques, defining your perimeter. That's another thing that's very important, depending on the type of data. And this goes back to regulations like PCI DSS. So depending on the data that it handles, you may need to move that asset to a separate network, for example. But again, all start with asset inventory. So if you don't have any solution for asset inventory, think about it. I would say Qualys, Nessus, and Rapid7 are the top 3 for scanning. And then CMDB, there are several. I'm not going to cite one, but you need to have a way to find your assets. That's pretty critical. Okay? Hope you enjoyed this video. If you don't subscribe yet, subscribe to my channel on YouTube and stay tuned for the next video. Okay? Take care.